When Elizabeth II passed away, the world paused not only in grief. In the hushed palace corridors, a silent question hung, a question that millions pondered. Where had the planet's most celebrated private jewelry collection vanished? Hundreds of tiaras, brooches and necklaces, each a silent witness to an entire epoch, seemed to dissolve into thin air, leaving behind only a deafening silence. Official London has maintained an icy silence, sparking a flurry of rumors and speculation. Were the treasures secretly divided, permanently locked away in impregnable vaults? Or is the truth hidden within a secret will, forever inaccessible to outsiders? Today, we will separate the conjectures from the concrete facts and uncover what truly happened to the jewelry legacy of the last great queen. To fully grasp the fate of Elizabeth II's inheritance, we must journey back in time to when the very concept of a monarch's personal collection began to take its modern form. It all started with her great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. It was Victoria who, confronted with dynastic disputes over the ownership of jewels, drew a clear line in the sand. On one side stood the crown jewels, state-owned treasures and unshakable symbols of power. On the other, personal adornments that the monarch was free to manage at their discretion. Thus, the foundation was laid for the creation of a unique assemblage destined to be shaped by her descendants. However, the true architect and collecting genius behind the collection Elizabeth inherited was her grandmother, Queen Mary of Teck. Possessing impeccable taste, encyclopedic knowledge, and an almost manic passion for the jeweler's art, Mary viewed jewels not merely as simple adornments. For her, they were the very building blocks of the House of Windsor's grandeur and resilience in the precarious world of the early 20th century, a time when other European monarchies crumbled one after another. Mary's vision was grandiose, to gather and consolidate the jewelry heritage, preventing it from being scattered among distant family branches or sold off. She acted with the resolve of a military commander. She repurchased family jewels at auctions, mercilessly dismantled outdated pieces to give the stones a new, more contemporary life, and acquired treasures from exiled Russian aristocrats. Every stone, every tiara, had to serve a singular purpose, reinforcing the prestige of the British crown. Her principal jeweler became the House of Garrard, to whom she entrusted the boldest redesigns and the creation of new masterpieces. It was under her discerning eye that many iconic jewels, which we would later see on Elizabeth II, were either created or modified. Mary didn't just collect, she curated, forging a dynastic fund intended to be passed down through generations as an indivisible whole. And here, a pivotal tradition was born, one that would become an unwritten law. In 1925, Queen Alexandra, Mary's mother-in-law, died without leaving a will, but she had meticulously annotated a photo album of her jewels, detailing who should inherit what. Mary carried out Alexandra's wishes, but she drew a crucial conclusion. To avoid fragmentation and the crushing burden of inheritance taxes, which could dismantle the collection within a couple of generations, she established a precedent. The private collection must pass entirely to the succeeding monarch. This principle was sacredly upheld by her daughter-in-law, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, who, in 2002, bequeathed all her jewels to her daughter, the reigning Queen Elizabeth II. Thus, by the time of her accession to the throne, Elizabeth became not merely an owner, but the custodian of a magnificent legacy, assembled and preserved by the iron will of her formidable grandmother. This was no mere jewelry box. It was a potent emblem of continuity and the unyielding power of the British monarchy. Elizabeth II's collection was far more than a mere treasure chest. It was a veritable jewelry library, with each piece serving as an individual volume, narrating tales of love, power, duty, and loss. Its anatomy was complex and multifaceted, and to truly grasp its essence, we must examine the key exhibits that formed its bedrock. At the forefront of this pantheon, undoubtedly, stood the tiaras, quintessential symbols of monarchical status. Among them was the Queen's cherished favorite, the almost ethereal girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, which she affectionately dubbed Granny's tiara. A wedding gift, it became her steadfast companion throughout her life, gracing countless portraits and banknotes. The Vladimir tiara, on the other hand, exuded a dramatically different character with an imperial sweep. Its very history reads like a thriller. Rescued from revolutionary Russia, smuggled out in a diplomatic mailbag, it became a crown jewel of the British collection. Its uniqueness lay in its ingenious design, allowing the pendants to be interchanged. It could be worn with its original pearl drops, swapped for emeralds, or even displayed with just the diamond loops. This tiara was not merely an adornment, it was an instrument of power, showcasing grandeur and historical continuity. But the Queen's jewels weren't solely about the cold sparkle of official regalia. They also included necklaces that bore witness to the most personal moments. Take, for example, the Nizam of Hyderabad necklace by Cartier, a wedding gift that the young Princess Elizabeth chose herself. This dazzling cascade of diamonds, shimmering brilliantly against her youthful skin, became a symbol of the fairy tale that the entire post-war world believed in. Or consider the festoon necklace commissioned by her father, King George VI, 3 strands comprising 150 perfectly matched diamonds, whose cool weight upon her shoulders was meant to remind her of the unshakable nature of her father's love and support. An extraordinary chapter in her jewelry chronicle was dedicated to brooches. The Queen owned hundreds, and they were far from simple accessories. They were her quiet language, her diplomatic code. When meeting with Canadian leaders, she would wear a maple leaf brooch. When visiting Ireland, a shamrock harp brooch. Brooches were a way to convey respect, commemorate memory, and send a signal understood only by those in the know. Among them were true giants, such as the Cullinan III and Cullinan IV brooches, cut from the largest diamond ever discovered. To wear them together was to bear upon one's chest a weight equivalent to a small fortune, and to feel the very breath of history upon oneself. And of course, it's impossible to imagine the Queen without her ever-present string of pearls, most often a 3-strand design. This was her daily uniform, a hallmark of constancy and understated elegance. Unlike the blinding brilliance of diamonds, pearls possessed a soft, serene luster, mirroring the essence of her character, unflappable and devoted to tradition. These pearls didn't shout their status, they whispered it, becoming as integral an element of her image as her famous hairstyle or her vibrant coats. Thus, the anatomy of Elizabeth II's treasure was a unique fusion. On one hand, it embodied the imperial grandeur inherited from Queen Mary. On the other, deeply personal gifts and sentimental keepsakes. It was an arsenal for state receptions and simultaneously a jewelry box filled with cherished memories. And it was precisely this duality, this delicate balance between public duty and private life, that transformed her collection from a mere assembly of stones into a genuine mirror of a monarch's soul and her epoch. The first true triumph of this unified collection, now under the aegis of the new Queen, unfolded not in the glittering ballrooms of Buckingham Palace, but beneath the scorching sun and brilliant stars of the Southern Hemisphere. The year was 1953. Immediately following her coronation, the young 27-year-old Elizabeth II embarked on a monumental 6-month tour of the Commonwealth nations. A world still reeling from war watched her with a blend of hope and curiosity. This was more than just a trip. It was a crucial diplomatic mission to prove that the British Empire, having given way to the Commonwealth of Nations, had lost none of its grandeur or influence. And the primary weapon in this campaign for hearts and minds was jewelry. For the first time, the treasures meticulously amassed by Queen Mary and carefully preserved by her daughter-in-law were deployed with full battle might. It was a mobile jewelry parade, painstakingly planned and flawlessly executed. For every official reception, for every state banquet in Australia, New Zealand, Ceylon, or Uganda, a specific, bespoke set of adornments was chosen. A world that had previously seen the Queen either in strict military uniform or in heavy coronation robes was utterly spellbound. At one reception in Sydney, she appeared in a gold brocade gown, crowned with the Vladimir tiara adorned with pearl drops. The next day, newspapers ran headlines describing her not as a monarch, but as a fairy tale vision. In Wellington, she sparkled in the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, her luminous, almost girlish image, accentuated by the diamond brilliance, captivated the hearts of New Zealanders. The Nizam of Hyderabad necklace gleamed at open-air receptions, transforming the young Queen into an epicenter of light and admiration. The reaction was deafening and surpassed all expectations. Reporters from across the globe meticulously detailed not only her speeches, but also every brooch, every necklace. Photographs circulated in the millions. It was a masterclass in the exercise of soft power. The jewels ceased to be mere accessories. They became a message. They spoke of stability, of a rich history, of the unbreakable bond between the crown and its people, scattered across the world. It was during this grueling tour, far from home, that the collection definitively merged with the image of its new wearer. The jewels, which had previously been associated with the austere and imperious Queen Mary, acquired a fresh interpretation. They gained lightness, youth, and hope. The world saw that these historic stones were not museum exhibits, but living symbols that, in the hands of the young Queen, found a new, dazzling life. This was the moment when Elizabeth II's private collection transformed from a family heirloom into a global phenomenon and a legend. 70 years, an eternity during which the world changed beyond recognition. Empires crumbled, rockets soared into space, music was born and died, fashion evolved. But through all these storms and upheavals, one constant persisted: the image of Queen Elizabeth II, and jewels were an integral part of it. Her reign became a golden age for this collection, a time when it was not just stored, but lived, breathed, and spoke alongside its owner. It was Elizabeth II who truly made jewelry her second skin, a part of her daily uniform. If for Queen Mary, tiaras and necklaces were armor for grand occasions, for her granddaughter, they became part of a personal and public language. The famous 3 strands of pearls, almost never leaving her neck, became a symbol of steadfastness and constancy. They were on her during weekly audiences with prime ministers, at the Ascot races, in family photographs at Balmoral. These pearls didn't shout wealth. They spoke of adherence to tradition and reserved dignity. But within her jewelry box were also pieces that held the warmth of her most cherished memories, transforming from mere adornments into veritable talismans. One such item was the modest yet elegant scarab brooch, crafted from yellow gold with rubies and diamonds, a deeply personal gift from Prince Philip in 1966. The Queen didn't wear it to the grandest events, but chose it for particularly meaningful private moments. It adorned her for the official portrait celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary, and most poignantly, it was this very brooch she wore to the service of Thanksgiving held in memory of her husband after his passing. In that moment, the cool brilliance of the stones conveyed more about love and loss than any words ever could. Of course, there were also moments that demanded the full splendor of her jewelry treasury. During state banquets at Buckingham Palace, when welcoming world leaders, the Queen commanded the room in her full majesty. Whether it was the Vladimir tiara, resplendent with Cambridge emeralds and complemented by the Delhi Durbar parure, or the diamond kokoshnik that created a dazzling wall of light, these were never merely adornments. They were a powerful demonstration of strength, history, and the unyielding resilience of the monarchy. Beneath the seeming fragility of an aging monarch lay the grandeur of centuries, embodied in the brilliant gleam of these legendary stones. Yet perhaps the greatest legacy of Queen Elizabeth II's golden era was her approach to the collection as a living, evolving trust. She didn't relegate these treasures to dusty vaults. On the contrary, her jewelry boxes became a veritable lending library from which she generously loaned pieces to other members of the family. Princess Diana, gracing events in the lover's knot tiara. Camilla, frequently seen wearing the Queen Mother's brooches. Kate Middleton, sparkling in the Nizam of Hyderabad necklace. All of this was part of the Queen's astute strategy. She meticulously wove these ancestral jewels into the fabric of new generations' lives, ensuring their stories would continue uninterrupted. Thus, over decades of her reign, the collection definitively ceased to be merely an accumulation of valuables. It became a visual chronicle of an age and the personal emblem of the Queen herself. From a modest brooch pinned to a coat lapel to a dazzling tiara nestled in her silver hair, each piece of jewelry was a stroke in her portrait, a symbol of her service, her personality, her very life. In the hands of such an icon, these stones found their very soul. However, behind the collection's dazzling facade, within its historic shadow, lie stories far less noble. These are tales of unbending will, intricate intrigues, and deals that were never intended for public scrutiny. And the central figure in many of these dramas was often not Elizabeth, but her grandmother, Queen Mary, whose collector's instinct sometimes veered into a ruthless pursuit. She didn't simply acquire, she reclaimed what she believed rightfully belonged to the crown, and her methods were anything but decorous. The most notorious, though meticulously swept under the rug, scandal is linked to the so-called Cambridge emeralds. These magnificent stones originally belonged to Queen Mary's aunt. Her son, Prince Francis of Teck, inherited them, and to the horror and scandal of the court, bequeathed them to his mistress, Countess Kilmorey. Queen Mary, upon learning of this after her brother's death, was incandescent with fury. She could not allow these irreplaceable family treasures to slip from royal hands. What followed was one of the quietest yet most desperate battles in the family's history. Mary arranged for the sealing of her late brother's private chambers and, according to rumors, discovered his incriminating letters to the Countess there. Armed with this powerful leverage, she compelled her brother's mistress to sell her the emeralds at a significantly reduced price. Formally, everything was legal. Factually, it was an elegantly executed royal shakedown. It was precisely this incident which laid bare some decidedly unsavory family secrets that became the root of one of the enduring enigmas of the present day. To prevent similar scandals from recurring, the royal family secured the unprecedented right to seal their wills. The tradition that today prevents us from knowing the final wishes of Elizabeth II was born from her grandmother's desire to conceal the consequences of her gemstone skirmish. Secrecy, then, is a shield forged in the fires of an old scandal. But the deepest shadow hangs over the collection due to stones whose chronicles are etched not in ink, but in the blood and tears of conquered peoples. The name of this shadow is the Koh-i-Noor. This legendary diamond, adorning one of the British monarch's crowns, is a perennial source of contention and diplomatic friction. India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan all claim it as a stolen treasure and have demanded its repatriation for decades. For millions of people, it is not a symbol of grandeur, but a searing reminder of a colonial past, a stark emblem of imperial expansion and coercion. Around such stones, legends inevitably bloom. One tale claims the Koh-i-Noor brings misfortune to any male ruler who possesses it, favoring only women. It's a beautiful myth, yet one that has been meticulously observed. Since the time of Queen Victoria, the diamond has been worn exclusively by queens or the consorts of kings. This is a vivid illustration of how documented history intertwines with mysticism and cold calculation with ancient superstitions. These shadows and whispers don't diminish the treasure's beauty, but rather imbue them with a tragic depth, reminding us that behind every great fortune lies not only immense effort, but also profound human dramas. On September 8, 2022, the hands of history paused. With Queen Elizabeth II's final breath, an entire epoch concluded, not just the life of a monarch, And in that very instant, for her personal jewelry collection, left without its mistress for the first time in 70 years, a completely new, uncertain chapter began. The moment the threads connecting the stones and the queen broke became the starting point for a great mystery. As soon as the official mourning period concluded, an almost palpable silence descended upon the royal jewelry treasury. The jewels, which for decades had been constantly in public view, accompanying every step of the Queen from the state opening of Parliament to Sunday church services, suddenly vanished. They disappeared from newspaper headlines, from television cameras, from the life of the royal family. This abrupt emptiness was deafening and sparked a wave of apprehension. The atmosphere was electric. Millions of voices worldwide posed the same question: what would happen now? This fervor wasn't like the anticipation of an auction. It was a profound concern for the fate of a national heritage. Would the collection be preserved as a single entity, following the tradition established by Queen Mary? Or would it be divided among heirs? Might unique tiaras and brooches appear at auction, permanently leaving the confines of the royal family and Britain? A whirlwind of speculation and theories swept through the press and social media. The answer was hidden behind an impenetrable wall of palace secrecy, the sealed will of the monarch. The tradition, born from the Cambridge Emerald scandal, now turned against the curious. No one outside a narrow circle of insiders had the right to know the Queen's final wishes. This veil of secrecy transformed the jewel's fate into the ultimate royal mystery of our time. Thus began their brief, yet tense, period of life in the shadows. From living symbols of an era, from the Queen's steadfast companions, they transformed into silent hostages of legal formalities and family decisions. Their brilliance dimmed in the darkness of vaults, and their future was shrouded in the fog of uncertainty. The end of one era became for them a moment of greatest vulnerability and doubt. The intense silence couldn't last forever. After months of conjecture and anxious waiting, the answer to the central question arrived not in the form of an official announcement, but as is customary within the British monarchy, through a silent yet eloquent gesture. The stage for the triumphant return was the first state banquet of King Charles III's reign, hosted in honor of the President of South Africa. The eyes of the world were fixed on the doors of the Buckingham Palace ballroom. It was here and now that the fate of the jewelry legacy would be decided. And then, the doors swung open. Queen Consort Camilla appeared first, and upon her head shone a tiara instantly recognizable to millions, the magnificent Belgian sapphire tiara, which Queen Elizabeth II had so loved and frequently worn with its matching necklace. This was more than just a public appearance. It was an act of proclamation, a gesture that spoke without words. The collection is intact, the tradition unbroken. I am the new keeper. The sapphires, once reflecting the light in Elizabeth's eyes, now crowned the head of her successor, symbolizing the unbroken thread of power. Following her into the hall was the new Princess of Wales, Catherine, and her choice was no less symbolic. She wore the lover's knot tiara, a jewel forever associated with her late mother-in-law, Princess Diana, but also a cherished piece from Elizabeth's collection. Complemented by pearl earrings and an Art Deco brooch, also once belonging to the late Queen, her ensemble became a message of continuity and respect for the past. This was more than mere borrowing. It was a powerful demonstration that the Queen's jewelry library was once again open for business, continuing to serve the future of the monarchy. That evening, the world witnessed not just the return of old treasures, but their fresh interpretation. On Elizabeth, these jewels were a part of her very being, an extension of her personality. Now, on Camilla and Catherine, they were perceived differently. They had become symbols not of personal history, but of dynastic roles. These were no longer just Grandma's tiara or a beloved necklace, but rather the attributes of the Queen Consort and the Princess of Wales's status. A transformation had occurred. From the personal collection of one monarch, these treasures had definitively evolved into the working fund of the dynasty. This triumphant re-entry onto the global stage instantly catapulted the collection's value to astronomical heights. And we're not speaking of financial valuation, which was already staggering. We're talking about its historical capital. Now, the most crucial line was added to the provenance of each piece, inherited from Queen Elizabeth II by King Charles III. This phrase is a guarantee of immortality. It confirmed that the system built by Queen Mary was working flawlessly, and that these stones are not mere assets, but the very lifeblood of the British monarchy, which had just survived its greatest loss. So, where is this priceless collection now? The answer is both simple and complex. Unlike the crown jewels, which are housed in the Tower of London and belong to the nation, Queen Elizabeth II's personal collection has, by all indications, passed into the full ownership of her heir, King Charles III. Physically, these treasures rest in the most secure and impregnable vaults of Buckingham Palace. But legally, their guardian and steward is the new monarch. He is not merely an owner, he is the new curator of a magnificent legacy. With this transition, the status of the jewels themselves has radically changed. From the personal effects of one woman, albeit a queen, they have definitively transformed into historical artifacts. Now, when the Princess of Wales or Queen Camilla dons a tiara or brooch from this collection, it is no longer just a choice of accessory. It is an act of historical continuity, a conscious quotation from a grand past. Every public appearance of these jewels is not a fashion statement, but a page from a living history book, a reminder of the steadfastness of the institution they represent. To attempt to appraise the monetary value of this collection is a futile exercise. Of course, one could calculate the weight of the diamonds, the caratage of the sapphires, and the cost of the jeweler's craftsmanship, but this would only be a fraction of their true worth. Their genuine value is composed of intangible assets. The foremost among them is the magical word, provenance. The fact that these stones were worn for decades by Elizabeth II, one of the most iconic figures of the 20th century, multiplies their price tenfold, if not 100-fold. These are no longer mere pieces of jewelry, they are relics. Today, the collection belongs not so much to one person as to world culture. King Charles III acts as its principal custodian, whose task is not to possess, but to preserve. To preserve for future generations of monarchs, for historians, for all who perceive in the cold gleam of these stones the vibrant pulse of human stories. He is the guardian of eternity, entrusted with carrying these symbols through time, preserving their legend and augmenting their glory. So, what became of Queen Elizabeth II's treasures? The answer, which we sought throughout this entire narrative, proved to be both straightforward and profound. They never truly vanished. Instead, they underwent a quiet, predestined transition, passing from one custodian to the next. The mystery that captivated the world wasn't about their disappearance, but rather the flawless upholding of a tradition established nearly 100 years ago. There were no scandalous divisions, no secret sales. There was only an act of transferring power, where the jewelry collection served as an invisible scepter passed from a mother's hands to her son's. Queen Mary's grand design, her dream of establishing a perpetual royal jewel trust, proved to be a flawless success. She saw past the mere sparkle of the stones, recognizing that a unified and inalienable collection was a potent instrument of power, prestige, and historical continuity. Queen Elizabeth II became the ideal steward of this vision, preserving and magnifying its magnificent inheritance. And King Charles III, by embracing it, reaffirmed that for the Windsors, this collection is not a personal indulgence, but a sacred duty. Herein lies the profound truth. These jewels have long transcended mere ornamentation. They are the dynasty's crystalline memory, the tangible embodiment of its triumphs, its tragedies, its soaring ambitions, and its enduring loves. The cold brilliance of the Vladimir tiara mirrors the fiery dawn of the Russian Revolution. In the delicate shimmer of the lover's knot tiara, Princess Diana's poignant, fragile fairy tale is forever enshrined. And in the unassuming scarab brooch, A 73-year love story still breathes. Each piece is a silent witness, having observed more history than any of us could ever conceive. This collection stands as a perfect metaphor for the British monarchy itself. It is capable of evolving and adapting, finding new interpretations in the hands of each successive generation, yet its core essence remains immutable. It has weathered wars, revolutions, and the relentless march of epochs, proving that true value lies not in carats alone, but in the unbroken continuity of history they symbolize. They are the anchor that steadies the present in the relentless current of time, linking it to a magnificent past. Their story did not conclude with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. On the contrary, a new chapter has just begun. We will undoubtedly see these tiaras and necklaces adorning future queens and princesses countless times, and each occasion will weave a new thread into their unending saga. They will gleam at coronations, state banquets, and royal weddings, intricately braiding new names and new destinies into their illustrious chronicle. For true masterpieces belong to no one. They belong to time itself, and time, much like the finest diamonds, is eternal.